Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Last Sunday, the death of the head of an ashram or mutt in Kerala and the constitution were being discussed simultaneously. The ashram head we're talking about is Keshwanand Bharti, the man whose name has become synonymous with constitutional law since 1973. For it was in that year that the Supreme Court, in a case titled Keshwanand Bharti vs. State of Kerala, enshrined the basic structure doctrine, saying that fundamental features such as democracy, federalism and secularism can simply not be tampered with. So I began KYC on Know Your Constitution this week by telling you about Keshwanand Bharti, the man as well as the verdict that immortalized him. So let's start with how Bharti, a holy man from the Idnir Mutt in Kerala, approached the Supreme Court in the first place. He had actually challenged the Kerala Land Reforms Amendment Act 1969 in 1970 as the government was going to acquire the properties of his ashram. According to Bharti, these properties were the ashram's main source of income back then. Initially, the case was just about this law, but senior advocate Nani Palkhiwala, who was representing Bharti, saw an opportunity in this. Instead of just arguing on the validity of Kerala law, he expanded the ambit of the case and also challenged several past constitutional amendments. These constitutional amendments had been introduced by the Indira Gandhi government to grant unlimited power to the parliament to alter the constitution. Palkhiwala's biography, Courtroom Genius, co-authored by senior advocates Soli Surabji and Arvind Dattar, pointed out that Bharti never even met or spoke with Palkhiwala. In fact, Bharti would be very surprised to read his name in the newspapers every day and always wondered why his simple case challenging only some land reforms in Kerala was taking so long. And here's how long it really took. A 13-judge bench, which was the entire strength of the Supreme Court back then, heard the case over 68 working days, spread over a period of 6 months. Their judgment took a mammoth 703 pages, and the bench gave 11 separate judgments over which the judges agreed and disagreed on several points. The basic structure doctrine, however, made it to the majority opinion. And this is how Bharti's name was immortalized as the lead petitioner in one of the most momentous judgments ever to be decided by the Supreme Court of independent India. The irony, though, is that Bharti himself actually lost the case. While the majority ruled that fundamental rights cannot be taken away by amending them, it upheld a constitutional amendment that removed the fundamental right to property. I did explain about the fundamental right to property in one of the earlier KYC episodes, and I'll provide the link for it in the description. Now, the court ruled that in spirit, the amendment removing the fundamental right to property did not violate the basic structure of the constitution. The mutt therefore lost its vast properties, but as many scholars argue, neither did the government win. In fact, such was the impact of the judgment on Indira Gandhi-led government that it ignored the tradition of the senior-most judge being appointed as the Chief Justice of India. 3 Supreme Court judges, Justices J.M. Shelat, A.N. Grover and K.S. Hegde, who were in line to be appointed as the CJI, was superseded, and Justice A.N. Ray was appointed as the Chief Justice of India instead. While the 3 judges were a part of the majority verdict, Justice Ray had dissented. All the 3 judges resigned soon after. 2 years later, Indira Gandhi would impose the emergency upon the nation, but this is a story for another time. Then on Wednesday, former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh praised contributions of former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and he specifically credited Gandhi with introducing the concept of fundamental duties in 1976. So on KYC Next, I took you back to 1976 to tell you the story of how these duties were added to the Constitution and what these duties are. Now, at the height of the emergency, Indira Gandhi's government made sweeping changes to the constitution through the 42nd constitutional amendment. One such change was adding Article 51A on fundamental duties. These were added on the basis of the recommendations made by the Sardar Swaran Singh Committee, which was also set up in 1976. And this committee had essentially suggested 8 fundamental duties. In fact, this committee also wanted that fundamental duties should be made obligatory and that a law should be passed for imposing a penalty or a punishment for their non-compliance. But the 10 fundamental duties that were finally added as a part of the 42nd Amendment were a modified version of the committee's recommendations. The government also chose to exclude the suggestion on penalty. As to the reasons for including fundamental duties, then Law Minister H.R. Gokhale had said in the Parliament that the duties were meant to have a sobering effect on these restless spirits who have had a host of anti-national, subversive and unconstitutional agitations. Now, here's a list of the fundamental duties for your reference. So, we have the duty to respect our national flag and national anthem, develop a scientific temper, strive for excellence. There's also a duty to preserve the environment. In fact, the Supreme Court referred to this duty in its 1988 judgment to direct that students should be taught about the protection and improvement of the environment on a weekly basis. So, in that way, the courts have often referred to fundamental duties in several landmark judgments like the Jallikattu verdict. Its judgment in the 2011 Ram Leela Maidan incident also had reference to fundamental duties. So, it usually refers to these fundamental duties to bolster its arguments and directions on different matters in order to support its reasoning. The 11th fundamental duty was actually added by the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government through the 86th Amendment in 2002. But while you can approach courts alleging violation of your fundamental rights, fundamental duties are not enforceable in that sense. We also brought you another KYC episode on quotas. And this time it was about the Supreme Court order on the Maratha quota and a very important question that was referred to the Constitution bench on Wednesday. The Supreme Court has not only stayed the implementation of the Maratha quota but has also referred a question on the interpretation of a recent constitutional amendment to the Constitution bench. And this question is whether state legislatures can actually declare a particular caste to be a socially and educationally backward class. Now, we've told you about the Maratha quota in detail in previous KYC episodes, so I'll be adding a link to that in the description. But to give you a brief recap, the law in question is the Maharashtra State Reservation for Socially and Educationally Backward Classes Act of 2018, or SEBC Act in short. This act declared Marathas in Maharashtra to be a socially and educationally backward class and provided them with reservation of 16% in educational institutions, including private institutions and public services. Now, the Bombay High Court upheld the law in June 2019, but it reduced the quantum of the quota from initial 16% to 12% in education and 13% in jobs. Naturally, this decision was challenged in the Supreme Court on several grounds, but the question that the court has now referred to the Constitution bench is on the interpretation of two constitutional provisions, Articles 338B and 342A, which were inserted by the Constitution 102nd Amendment Act 2018. Article 338B essentially deals with the structure, duties and powers of the National Commission for Backward Classes, and Article 342A speaks about the power of the President to notify a class as a socially and educationally backward class and the power of the Parliament to alter the SEBC list. Now, those challenging the law have essentially contended that since these provisions were specifically added to the Constitution in 2018 and gave powers to the President and the Parliament to notify a class as a socially and educationally backward class, the petitioners have contended that states therefore cannot do so anymore. This question will now be considered by the Constitution bench. Now, the Maratha quota also increased the total reservation to over 50%. Now, the petitioners had specifically contended that this violates the Supreme Court's Indra Sawhney judgment, which as I have told you before, specifically ruled that reservations should not exceed 50% of the total seats. This can only be done in exceptional circumstances. The Supreme Court now ruled that on the face of it, the Maharashtra government had not shown any extraordinary situation to breach the 50% limit. It therefore stayed the implementation of the Maratha quota for now as well. This is Apurva Mandhani for The Print. For more such videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.